were all at work tonight, so we couldn't give you our live initial reaction. But we didn't waste any time going live. In fact, you could tell by the visualization that I was still working behind the scenes on a few transitions because we want to give you as transparent reaction as possible to the quarterback news that we got in the NFL, but also we're going to bring you our XFL kind of preview on what to expect because there are some changes. There was a suspension, there is some television changes. And then we have, of course, our like four main topics of the night that we'll go through. But I think it would be illegitimate to not consider the Panthers trade with the Bears trade, however you want to say it, as the top story.
Yeah, it's a story, ain't it?
I have to let you go first. You're a fan. You have to give us that initial go to reaction. I mean, you kind of did.
And my initial reaction is I am not happy with this. I really think this dug us a hole that we didn't need. Like, I don't think Stroud, Young, Richardson are all that much different. I would have been fine I would have been fine with whichever one fell to us at 9. And to trade all of that away just to get the number 1 so that we know we're getting our guy. I think it was much. It was a little too much. I think it puts us too far behind. It's not insurmountable as long as we draft the right guy who is our guy for the next decade. But I think it was not the best move.
Do you mind if I play devil's advocate just to get your reaction?
Sure.
So I had heard, and this is again my initial reaction because I was at work up until like 20 minutes ago. So truly I'm catching up. But I had heard that there was multiple suitors willing to trade up, but there was also multiple suitors in front of you that would have just taken quarterback at their selection, including the Lions. The Colts, I guess, were possession to go up and get one. Obviously, the Texans would have. And potentially the Bears would have valued a quarterback number 1 had they stayed there. Do you believe any of that to be true? Do you think – because you said you believe you could have still got somebody at 9. What happens if 4 or 5 of those quarterbacks were gone the way they thought it could have went?
I don't believe Chicago was ever going to take a quarterback. That's why they were looking to shop this pick.
Yeah.
They were going to keep Justin Fields. So I think that was safe. Houston was going to take one with number 2 regardless. So that's 1. I wasn't 100% sure Detroit was going to take one, but they were definitely a possibility. And then I figured Indy would take one. But I also feel like Indy's going to get a Levitt. So that would have, but like any one of the 4. So right there, it's okay, so Houston, Detroit, Indy. But in that you have Arizona. Do I think the Raiders would have taken one just ahead of us? Maybe. But even then, I think we could have traded away less to Detroit or Indy to get theirs if we needed to.
Especially Detroit, given they have 2 first-rounders.
Exactly. I feel like there were other deals we could have made that we still could have gotten a good guy.
What pick does Detroit have?
Is it 4?
They have 6 and I believe 12.
6 and 12.
I think the biggest news, honestly, from this trade alone, is now the best pass rusher, Anderson, could fall to at least 3.
Yeah, Arizona probably takes him then. Yeah.
JJ Watt gone.
And I still think Carter goes top 10.
This is a big trade. Even if it doesn't work out for either team, which if it doesn't work out for the Bears, then that would be shocking. But the Panthers, I get the move, but I feel like now there's rumors that they might be looking to trade down. I feel like that's just, them doing their due diligence, whatever, seeing what they can get for it. But it's not a big like trade to get up to number one in this scenario, with there being so many questions at quarterback. Plus, I think we've seen it multiple times now. We saw it once with now, granted, it didn't work out in the end because Deshaun Watson got in his legal trouble. And the Chiefs with Mahomes, like, you should build your team around you first, then get your quarterback.
I don't really care, Donnie. I'll push back on it a bit. I don't really care how you build your team, but you better just have your structure, have your identity, and build it that way. I don't care if you want to take the Rams approach where you trade away all your draft picks and you bring in veterans like Matthew Stafford, because that worked. Now we saw the flip side of that with the Colts bringing in multiple veterans and it didn't work. So there's a give and take. There is a solution and a problem to every flip side or every decision you make. It just depends on whether you're right or wrong. And ultimately, that's what's going to determine whether this trade is valuable for one side, both sides. And it's going to take a duration of time to figure that out. Here's the thing that annoys me is that everyone wants to have a snap judgment. Was this a smart trade? Was this a good trade? Was this a bad trade? And to me, it would be like saying, well, can you win an Academy Award this year? Could I? No, there's not a chance I'm ever going to win an Oscar ever in my life. Is there a chance that Leonardo DiCaprio could win an Oscar, this year? Yes. Now, is he nominated? No, but he has a much higher chance than me because at some point he's going to be a fill-in or a replacement, similar to what you see with the Pro Bowl. So like his odds are still higher than mine, and so I don't mind the Panthers taking their chances and like saying, "Hey, we believe one of these four guys." And obviously, they probably have a name, whether it be a Young or, even a Will Levis, they like, or a CJ Stroud. Whoever that is, I have no problem with them going in and doing it. What I have a problem with is people being like, oh, it's a stupid trade because trading up for quarterback hasn't worked for the Packers and Jordan Love. It hasn't worked for, Trey Lance situation yet. So therefore, it's bad for the Panthers. And I just think that's a stupid straw man's argument because, like I said, I'm never going to win an Oscar, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't watch the Oscars or cheer for your favorite actors. All you want people to do is be put into roles, put into position, and hope it works out. Gov can be upset and be like, I think we gave up too much. I own a DJ Moore jersey, and still be happy if Will Levis becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, I don't think you should be beholden to one view or one opinion based on a 5-minute, breaking news scroller at the bottom of your screen. I just feel like people do that too much. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense to me, yeah.
I know that was a long-winded way to say it, but that's the only way I could think to do it was to really flush it out.
So with that happening, do you think other teams are going to be more desperate to move up now, or
no? I think they'll use it as an excuse, just like how some owners and coaches will excuse stupid questions at the combine for, oh, that's just what most coaches do, or of course I want to see how players react under pressure, so I'm going to ask them a prostitute question like that was asked about Des Bryant from the Dolphins a couple of years ago. In reality, we got to realize that some of these owners are just scumbags. Some of these people don't have boundaries. Some of them do. They have different value systems. Just like when you look at this trade, Some people would make this trade, some owners wouldn't. I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer. And therefore, I don't think it really changes much. People are still going to do what they were going to do. It's just we don't know what that is. So for us, the fan, I guess it has changed. But I don't think it actually changes for the majority of the owners. Do you?
I mean, certain like QB needy teams around like 8, maybe 7 might. I don't even know the order yet, to be honest. But if there is a QB needy team in that area, they might try and jump someone, in my opinion. But
I guess I agree with you on that point, Donnie. But I don't believe that like teams become like instantaneously more aggressive or less aggressive. For example, Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions, if they're trying to trade up for a quarterback, most likely they were trying to trade up 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So the urgency, I don't think changes. The goal is probably still the same as it always was. But I always think that owners and coaches and general managers are more plugged in than we know about. Like I think the Lamar Jackson thing was discussed at the combine, for example, and that's why nobody has taken the plunge. I think there's teams interested. I just think there was a lot of backdoor dealings. Whether it was actually wink agreed on, handshake agreement, I think the owners were in lockstep. I think that happens more often with a lot of these decisions. Gov, jump back in if you want, buddy.
This is just such a processing thing for me because I've been worried about what quarterback we were going to get this whole time. And I was like starting to settle on like, you know what, screw it. Hopefully Richardson falls to us and he would have been guy. But I also 100% think you do not go to get the number 1 overall pick to get Anthony Richardson.
I don't think Richardson is going to be that good, personally.
He has athleticism, but like he's not ahead of Stroud or Young. And you can have the argument Stroud or Young, that is the argument to have. So when you trade up the number 1, you're going to get one of them. And like, okay, if we're doing that, I have to try to ease myself with this decision that I think we've dug ourselves a hole. And the only way to ease myself is to be like, well, at least we can take CJ Stroud, who has everything going for him, has an accurate arm, showed the ability to scramble, even though he's not a scrambler, and doesn't have the small size that Bryce Young has. And he didn't play for Alabama.
Can I tie this into my topic that I was already going to bring up tonight? And we don't have a position.
This is honestly my one. I couldn't even think of after this, like nothing else. So this is topic 1 for me. This is my like wheel.
But I guess you could marry or partner my topic with this one all the same. My topic this week was going to be, I think what happens a lot of times is people like debate shows because of debates, right? But we've fallen into the trap of having a hot take. Or, okay, Gov is a fan of the Panthers, therefore his reaction's got to be the strongest. Whether he loves it, hates it, he can't be indifferent. He's a fan. He's either got to love DJ Moore or be glad he's gone.
God, I did like DJ Moore. Like
that's a first-round pick that you gave up.
See, that's the thing. They wanted 3 first. What I was hearing is the Bears wanted 3 first-rounders. And we essentially gave them that if you count DJ Moore as a first-round pick. Because he's still on the last year of his rookie deal. So you get him for 1 more year with under a good contract before you have to either pay him or let him go after next offseason.
Right.
No, the Bears have a legit receiving core now, too. They have Claypool still.
Claypool, Mooney, and DJ Moore. That's a solid 1, 2, 3.
Fields has to show us now.
Yeah. They also have a run game with Khalil Herbert. And like this is what they have the run game. They have the receiving core. The offensive line should get better. They need to just take these picks, draft defense, and then it's just okay. Now it's what does Fields show us? They're putting a team around him to make a push.
I don't even think you mentioned their best receiver, which is Cole Kmet. I truly
A
believe
tight
that.
end, a good tight end is always like we saw with Mahomes. Like if you have a really good tight end that you trust, it's
But
helpful.
that's my point, though. Is like I want to do this thing where we have these topics weekly, and this is a good one to kind of use this point where we have debates or we have ideas, but we don't have to have answers. Like, for example, I would like to look at like my large idea tonight was to look at something like who is the greatest quarterback of all time? Instead of saying, oh, it's definitely Tom Brady, or it's definitely LeBron James to use a different sport, or Michael Jordan. It's like instead you just introduce the possibilities and then have that discussion of what it could be, right? Like I think Patrick Mahomes can challenge Tom Brady as the best quarterback. To me, that's a better discussion to have than to try to make the argument that Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes are better currently. So I guess that's where we should go with this topic. It's what does it look like for you, Donnie, if it works out for the Panthers?
I mean, this just based off this season, even if you're a 5-win team, it could look like the Jaguars season with Trevor Lawrence at first. As long as you're showing signs that you could progress in the future and you're making the moves to surround whoever you draft, probably
Right.
Stroud, I'd assume. That's all you need to do at this point. Just make sure you're surrounding the guy with the right pieces.
You can be as defiant about this as you want, Donnie. You could tell me who that is. You could just tell me the philosophy. Mainly what I'm asking, though, is like, at what point is it successful for the team? Like, is it successful now because they took the chance and they had the fortitude to actually go ahead and be like, all chips in?
Yeah, I think being aggressive is great because
Right.
you can lure free agents in that way. Somebody who wants to have a quarterback for the next decade or whatever.
So you would argue that Trey Lance was a success, no matter if he actually comes back and he plays well or not. And maybe the fortune favors the bold, and because they were bold for Trey Lance, even if he doesn't work out, guess what? Brock Purdy landed right in their lap. So
Yeah,
they got lucky there. But
there was something I wanted to say and it just left my mind.
It's okay. It's been a long day for you, buddy. How is it not a success for the Panthers? Like, how is this a terrible decision?
If Stroud is not a top tier quarterback before the end of his rookie deal,
And what does that mean for you?
that means he is like what's the comparison? Like by the end of his, because it's hard because it's also team based for
Right,
to give it a metric of wins is also team and organization based. But like if Stroud is not a guy that everyone would be like, he can't be Lamar where people are afraid to pay him.
That's where I want to go with this, actually.
All right. If he can't be Lamar where people are afraid to pay him at the end of his rookie deal.
Right. Okay.
Like if he's that, we failed. If the guy we draft is that or worse, we fail. If he's a guy we're willing to extend, like a Patrick Mahomes, like, okay, you haven't won, but that's mostly because we lost all those picks. The defense just starting to look good. We weren't able to keep the offensive line as good as it was, and we've never gotten you an extra receiver outside of maybe one guy. Like kind of like what Green Bay does. It's like, we can't really get you the receiver, but the team's going to be pretty okay around you. Can you step it up and elevate us? And like if Stroud proves that he's kind of that guy but can't get us over the edge, then like kind of what a little better than Daniel Jones. Like you kind of okay with Daniel, especially after this last year. You kind of think you can do something with Daniel Jones in New York, most likely. You just need to put the team around him. You'd be willing to pay Daniel Jones and keep him. Maybe not top money, but like that's what's our guy. Whoever we draft has to be that at least, or we fail. With what we gave up, we have to get that. We can't have a Lamar situation happen in 5 years.
Well, here's the thing with the Lamar situation. This is actually exactly what I wanted to bring up. Why would you give up 3 firsts, 2 seconds for a question mark when you could have gotten Lamar for 2 firsts, probably?
No one wants Lamar. Everyone's already interviewed with Lamar. It's either collusion from the owners to be like, hey, the Baltimore owners called everyone to be like, hey, this is the deal we gave him. Just don't give him more, and he'll just walk away, and then he'll be stuck and be like, okay, I guess I really am not worth whatever crate, because he's probably asking for close to Mahomes money.
Right.
And he's not worth that.
I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is he wants the guaranteed.
Well, yeah, no, I don't. And I think you could finagle the guarantee or do something, but the real issue is like he wants like 170 or 80 or 180 guaranteed, and Baltimore only wants to give him 120.
Maybe there
and that $50 million guaranteed is what's really keeping it up.
Right. Maybe there's no issue though. It's just different variants for different people. Like maybe part of it is people would rather take a chance on a rookie.
But all right, just from Ghost's perspective, what would you prefer? Would you rather get a rookie that you know nothing about, or would you rather have Lamar Jackson and give up the 2 firsts, keep DJ Moore?
I'd rather have the rookie, but I notoriously do not like Lamar Jackson. I've been thinking he's just like a slightly upgraded Colin Kaepernick. He has a rocket arm with not actually good NFL accuracy, and he can run around. Eventually, that's going to get him hurt, and he doesn't have the arm to make and pocket awareness to make up for that, which makes him a ceiling. That's why he always duds in the playoffs. He just hits that ceiling because when you start playing playoff defenses, you have to be able to like hit everything perfectly to keep your offense going. You can't I saw it with Cam all those years. You can't just rely on athleticism. The rest of the team has to be doing everything right. And Cam got there with the defense basically destroying everyone so that he could still make a mistake or two, just don't totally fuck it up. And then he totally fucked it up in the Super Bowl.
Well, that's what I didn't want to do, though, is like have these ultimatum discussions and we just have a broader discussion. And that was kind of my point, though, initially. It's like, what if everyone has their different opinions on Lamar Jackson that prevents him from being signed currently or pursued, and there's not one right or wrong answer. It's just a collection of things. Like some people may say, I'd rather have the rookie because of their age. Some people say, well, I don't want to pay Lamar Jackson the money. A rookie contract is more advantageous to how I would want to allocate my free agent money.
It's better to build a team with.
Right. Some people might say, I'm worried that Lamar Jackson's injury prone, I'm worried that, Greg Roman style is the only style Lamar Jackson can play. Some might even go racist, which I'm not racist, and say they don't want a black quarterback. I mean, if we're going to explore all the possibilities and what ifs, we have to embrace all of the negatives and dark sides of the league. Just like some people don't want to admit that Matthew Stafford is one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league, but that probably means he took a lot of drugs that he probably will regret in 12 years, to play in some of those games for his back, for this and that, but those are things that you gotta account for. You don't gotta like it. We don't gotta accept it in terms of like, oh, I'm a fan because the NFL promotes this, but we can acknowledge that, yeah, we might not like this element of the game, but it happens, I don't like that there's bad people that do bad personal things like Alvin Kamara, but they exist. Tyreek Hill exists in the league. I'm not saying he should be banished. And so there are different elements of why you would say no to Lamar Jackson or yes. For example, I would be okay with the Lions signing Lamar Jackson, but under certain parameters. Like, I don't want to just make him the highest paid quarterback just to appease him. Just like I wouldn't want to bring in a new offensive coordinator just to appease him when I think Johnson's done a pretty good job. That's why I think like the Jets have made a terrible mistake hiring Hackett if the only purpose was Aaron Rodgers, because then you're already kind of in just another Denver situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's parts of everything we're gonna like or dislike. Like, I'm sure DJ Moore's mom might be thrilled he's with Chicago. Other people will be like, "Oh well, I know DJ Moore's not a cold weather guy." You know, there are so many factors we don't even know about, or probably will never know, that we also got to factor into just being fans. And it's okay. It's okay to embrace that. It's okay to be like, Gov, you can feel this way about the trade. And then 2 hours from now, when we're off the podcast, you can totally change your opinion too. As a sport fan, I don't think we should marry ourselves to ideas just the same as I don't believe in bandwagon fans. So that's my personal choice, but that's just how I choose to get down with my fandom. Not labeling one way is better than the other.
Oh, this is just this literally hit me in the middle of like crunching for NBA. I had no time to think or react to anything.
Well, do you want me to make you feel better, Gov? Because I thought that the Cavaliers game, for whatever reason, locked at 9 o'clock. So I left Garland in my lineup, and it was like, I don't get off of work till 9 o'clock, but it's okay because I'll be able to make the switch before then. And he was the only one ruled out tonight. And so
I got the Mitchell because I knew that news was coming.
Right. So, and I knew you did, so that's why I brought it up, because so it benefits you.
And that's working out right now.
Yeah, it benefits you, hurts me, but I'm not like, oh, Gov is smarter at NBA than I am. You know, it's like a time management thing. It's like
exactly
you had different time management restrictions than I did, which led me to a decision. You know, and that's fine. Like, Donnie, how will this trade look if both teams fail? So it's a failure for both teams. What does that look like?
I mean, if let's just say it fails for both teams, I think for the Bears, it's a good thing if it fails, just because you can get off Fields. And then clearly Fields wasn't the guy, so you have your answer on him.
Right.
So even if it's a failure in Chicago, I think it still has positives to it. As for Carolina, I don't know what you do if this is a fail. You have to completely rebuild, get rid of Brian Burns.
We just paid him. Like, we're not doing that.
But at 3 years from now, if they're still not showing any signs, do you?
Yeah, no. Then you have to and we could be in that hole because we're out those first round. That's what worries me, is that the team doesn't make the turnaround until we have to pay our quarterback. Well, that's what worries me. Which means he has to be a guy that's worth paying at that point.
But he doesn't, Gov, because yes, it would be catastrophic. It would be a failure. The owner probably loses his job. The coach doesn't look good. The whole organization gets egg on their face, and they look like an easy bake oven when they were trying to be a General Electric product. Like, it's totally laughable, right? But they could learn from the Cardinals situation opposed to the Detroit Lions with Joey Harrington, where it's like we drafted Joey Harrington and then just refused to move on from the Oregon product because we drafted him first overall. We hung on to him probably 6 years too long when we knew that first year he wasn't good. And then in the 2000s, that's what the Cardinals did. They drafted Rosen. They realized after 1 year, Rosen's not the guy. We got to get off of him. We got to move on. And so they did it instantaneously. If the Panthers take C.J. Stroud, just for an example, or I'll even just make up a name, Johnny Manziel. And so if Johnny doesn't work, then next year you have a top pick again, or you're a bad team, so you have the cap space, or you have some assets, and then you get right back into the thick of things. Like, people want to make this argument that the Saints are silly because they want to compete every year, and so they just find a way to manipulate their cap. But as long as they manipulate it the way they want, it doesn't really matter if we like it or not. It's the way they choose to build. So, like, I think if you're a bad team next year, there's ways to find another quarterback. You don't have to. You don't have to try this training wheels approach with a guy for 4 years. I think that's archaic. I really do. Unless he shows flashes. I mean, if he shows a, Lamar Jackson like upside or Justin Herbert like upside or something of this nature, then fine. But I just don't believe that anything can be like, I like taking a chance. I will always, I don't know, call me crazy for being a DFS player, for being a gambler, for enjoying the thrill of it. Maybe that's why. But I will always favor the owners that are like, you know what, screw it, I'm doing it my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For my thing, I just had like a handful of quick fire news. If we want to get that out of the way,
Sure, go ahead.
we have Vikings release Thielen and Cam Dantzler, which that's two.
Thielen's sort of a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Thielen's done.
No, I do too, but like he was always a major like locker room guy and a cog in their offense. So
yeah, he could still play a Marvin Jones
that
role.
will change the offense, not having his consistency on the other side of Jefferson.
You think so?
I do. I think nothing else. He was a guy like Cousins trusted. Now you still have Jefferson and you have Hawkinson, but I do think like they need to find whoever that guy is going to be to replace.
They need the next guy.
I think Thielen is no better than Josh Gordon right now, talent-wise.
But talent isn't everything.
True that. I mean, you did mention how he's a locker room presence, but like, I just think like at some point you got to know when the production has met the end of the road, and like I would rather go out early than late, so maybe that's why I'm being so harsh. But I hope he reevaluates and kind of goes out like Julian Edelman. And so the fans of the Vikings and the fans of Thielen's production, because he has been productive, can go out with their heads held high because I don't think he's got much left to offer.
Yeah, I think he can do a Marvin Jones role, and that's it. Second thing of news, Darius Slay, permission to seek trade. Brandon Graham returns to the Eagles.
Does that mean Bradbury is going to stay with him?
If they lose Bradbury, Gardner Johnson, and Slay, that team looks so different next year.
Not to mention they've lost 3 coaches. Like they lost their offensive coordinator, their offensive coordinator, their quarterback's coach, and then I want to say they lost somebody else to another position or another offensive coordinator. So like a position coach got promoted as well. I mean, they lost a lot.
Tua gets the 5th-year option. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Dolphins. I don't know how you guys feel about Tua. I like Tua. I can see why,
it locks them into a solid contract for at least a year. So even if you do trade, it's an okay tradable contract. It's like DJ Moore. Like it locks him into it locks a good young player into a contract for at least a year.
Let me ask you this question because I heard this floated around in a podcast recently, and the argument was this. Okay, so given Tua's injury history, or even like Lamar Jackson, if you don't want to be like personally biased to only the Dolphins situation, would you be more likely to be like, my quarterback's coming off an injury, therefore I need to go out and get the best backup possible, even if I got to pay him starter money? So like you pay, Jimmy Garoppolo starter money to be your backup. Or do you be like, you know what, if my starter goes down, no matter if it's Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, or Aaron Rodgers, my season drastically changes anyways. So season to season, I don't try to predict injuries. Therefore, I'm not going to waste a bunch of money on 2 quarterbacks because if I have 2, I have none. Like, where do you guys fall on that spectrum?
I'm taking the shot in the dark, hoping that Tua stays healthy. If he doesn't, hopefully we suck and we can draft a quarterback next year. That's where I'd be on that.
Fair enough. I
don't disagree with that.
But see, I think I would pay for the backup quarterback, but I wouldn't do it because of Tua or because of the injuries. I would view backup quarterback as the second most important position of any team I ever owned. Those would be the first 2 things I would do. Like, if I was an XFL owner, my first 2 picks would be quarterback. because you can either trade a quarterback, you can always trade up for a quarterback. Quarterback always has value. And Don knows this because we used to play Madden together and I used to build my teams. And I always told people, I build my strengths. So I don't care if I take 3 quarterbacks with the first 3 picks in the draft. If those are the 3 best players, I'll take them. Because I'll find a way for that third wide receiver to be a slot receiver. And that's just how I view things.
Yeah. The last bit of news I had was Patriots news. Devin McCourty calls it a career today. I'd assume he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Has the Super Bowls, been an All-Pro, consistently a guy who's been a captain.
That's a good question for either of you, though. Does being a Hall of Famer matter to you as a fan?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on. I think if it takes 10 years, it's kind of like it's taken so long. But if it's, I think McCourty will get in rather quick.
I was about to say, being a first ballot Hall of Famer means something to me, but yeah, if a guy doesn't get in the first couple of years, it's like, if he's good for my team,
he'll be in your team's Hall of Fame,
right? For me, I will always love Steve Smith, and I really want him to get in early. But if he doesn't get in the first 2 or 3 years, it really doesn't matter if he ever gets in the Hall of Fame.
Right, Gov, that's like me. That's like my personal affection. I don't think it's any secret now, and I haven't told you guys this, but if Donnie needed a place to stay for 2 weeks, he could come to my house tomorrow, and I would let him in, right? There are family members, and I have no problem saying this, that could not stay with me for more than 5 minutes. I wouldn't even let them in my house. So that's just how I get down. So I don't view a Hall of Fame as validation for me at all. I don't care if it's Calvin Johnson on my team. I don't care if it's another sport like baseball. I don't care if Pete Rose ever gets in. Now Pete Rose probably cares. Barry Bonds probably cares. Some people are going to make the argument that steroids matter. For me, it's I either value you or I don't. But I don't need the Hall of Fame plaque to say that.
Well,
I've never been that guy in anything I do.
Well, I'll always, I grew up with Devin McCourty on the team, basically. So he's always been around for me. So I'll always remember, that those first couple of Super Bowl teams that I, visibly saw and whatnot. But
right. I'm with Gov that Steve Smith is one of my favorites. I don't ever care if I ever hear Steve Smith give a Hall of Fame speech, though, because for me, I could die tomorrow and Steve Smith would still be a joy to watch. I would enjoy watching Steve.
I have the same feeling about Megatron. I always loved Calvin Johnson.
Right. And you can love him for different reasons. I have a friend that because of what he's done off the field and how the Lions treated him, it changed his perspective of the Lions, but also changed his perspective of Calvin Johnson going into the marijuana business. Now, some people, that might be why they're fans of him, or it's just strictly sports for people. It's fine to have those opinions. I was just curious because I feel it's almost preposterous, or not preposterous, but when an actor dies, people are like, oh, I got to see their last movie, or, it's well, yeah, you should see it if you have interest. And if that's the only interest, that's a little bit morbid, but it's still an interest, I guess. But I just never had that pull. It's oh, well, you said they're a Hall of Famer, therefore I'll go back and look at Deion's career and judge for myself. It's I either see it as value or I don't. I don't need any validation from an outside source. So I was just curious. But Donnie, do you feel like that with just your team, or do you feel that way with almost everybody you admire in the NFL?
Almost everybody. I mean, I feel like if you're in the first 5 years, I'm cool, you made. But if you're not in the first 5 years, I don't value that as much anymore. But it's still nice to see people make it.
I know this will sound harsh, but I don't mean to be harsh. It doesn't have that much. To me, being in a Hall of Fame predicted and judged by other people, no, they might be valid NFL minds that I respect, like a Peter King, for example, you know. But that doesn't mean that like I have to value his choice, even though I value his opinion. So like I just view Hall of Fames as like Pro Bowls. Like it's for somebody else. I understand the value, but it's for somebody else.
I understand what you mean.
Anything else before we transition to our lineup build?
Nope, that's it for me.
Yeah, that's all the news I had.
Actually, I had one, and this will be another example of like how things don't have to be debated right or wrong. I have a hot take, and I want to start doing this where I just like have a hot take, and I'll defend it, but I won't like tell you I'm right and wrong. I truly believe, and you can ask anyone that does know me that I've expressed this opinion to, and I don't think I've expressed it to either one of you, that I think Pete Carroll is the most talented coach in football. Like, to me, he would be number one on my list. And the reason I do that is because I view his football totality as a whole. So I'm looking at his professional ranks, his collegiate ranks, his high school, his recruiting, his high school influences, what people have said about him, how he's respected, and his longevity. Now, some people think that's preposterous because, it's Bill Belichick based on a record or based on a statistic. But it's almost like what Gov was saying earlier with your point. To me, that's a team thing. Like Bill Belichick is a great coach. He's probably number 2 for me. Or he's definitely the Mount Rushmore, right? I'm not into ranking 1, 2, 3. I just think that when I look at coaches that I would hire, the number one guy for me is Pete Carroll because he's done it at all levels, and for me that means something. So I guess that was like my larger point. Is there any other takeaways that like you just wanted to get out there that you want people to know, and then you can defend it or not, just like to have it out there?
No. I think when we get close to the draft, I'll probably get one for us.
And I guess to put a bow on it, it's just like one of those things. It's like we can have these opinions and have them be valid, and then also not be like Stephen A. Smith where we're ripping off a tie and like changing wardrobes and like trying to put on a show. Like I could defend that point, and I think you guys respect me as fans enough to listen to my my point of view on the coach, and we'll get into that more in the offseason, but I just want to use that as a point of reference. Speaking of points of reference, let's go to the other professional football league, a very different league, but I don't think a bad league. The XFL isn't the NFL. It's not as bad as the USFL. I actually really enjoyed it. And Gov, I know you were in the Discord channel that we're a part of with some of the other football guys, and they aren't as avid of watchers as me, and they probably haven't built as many lineups as we have. And we had some mixed opinions, but I think people have embraced it for what it is. And that is good because whether they like it or they dislike it, at least they gave it a chance. And so, yeah, just go ahead. Do you have any?
No, sorry, I was clearing my throat real quick.
And this could be open up to Donnie as well. Do you have any takeaways? Do you think for sure we'll get a season 2? Like, what are some of your I guess flag plants of the XFL so far?
I mean, I really feel we kind of hit on this before. I just feel like it's doing its job and it's doing it well. It's giving us unique things. I really have enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of this turmoil, and I think some of you've probably heard about the suspension, but I'm going to mention something that I think is a positive that most people took as a negative. The ratings for the XFL are down.
That's not shocking to me. That's what happens with all the leagues.
But it's not. That's exactly it, Donnie. It's not shocking to me either, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. The Rock immediately responded to it, which I think is great. That it's not that good things happen for this league, or bad things happen, but it's in the response time. It's like I can't control if Donnie's house catches on fire, just like he couldn't. You can't always control bad things happening. You can control how you react to them, though. And every time adversity has happened with the XFL, they've responded well, I feel like. Last week we talked about the quarterback that was trading his playbook for potential gambling opportunities, trading it with former teammates or different organizations for different perks that we're not aware of completely yet. But instead of waiting and placating and trying to cover it up, the XFL handled it swiftly. Like right, wrong, or indifferent, they handled it swiftly, and I think that speaks to the point. They reacted and they did it quickly, and they had it. They had a solution. What was it? A perfect solution? No, but they had a solution. And The Rock has a solution to the low ratings. He said that week one the ratings were good, and it's because they were on ABC. They were supposed to be on Fox next week. They're still going to be on FX. They're still going to be on Fox next week, but they're moving one of the FX games to ESPN, and then they're moving the ESPN game up to ABC. And The Rock is willing to pay the difference because he thinks the ratings will reflect them being easier to find on more available channels, which I have to admire his swiftness to act with such bold confidence. Whether it's right or wrong, I just feel like that's a great way to respond. What do you think about that? Do you think
I don't know. I feel like the ratings are going to continue to dip for a while anyway. No matter what you do, I feel like the ratings will dip.
I mean, they've sort of stabilized. Like they need at this point, I think, unless like I like the fact that he flexed some of those games to different networks. So like that should help a little bit. But until something big happens in the league, which maybe the fight last week will get some more ownership or something. But like something flashy needs to happen that they can advertise that can help with that. And I haven't seen yet any kind of like advertising package that has clicks from the first couple of weeks of games. So like they need to sort of get a campaign out doing that.
You know what really is really unfortunate is they have a great documentary series that I haven't even checked out, and it's directed by the guy who made Friday Night Lights, Peter Berg, because Peter has a great relationship with The Rock. So I know it's going to be great because Peter Berg doesn't put his name on it. I mean, much of anything. He helped make the movie. He helped make the TV series that lasted quite a while with Kyle Chandler that was on NBC. Like, I'm sure this documentary is good, but to your point, it hasn't been advertised very well. I'm not even sure you guys knew about it. And it has major backing. Peter Berg's a mainstream guy, but it's just like they don't, it hasn't been seen yet. And part of getting stabilization and unity is being consistent. And so like I like the flexibility that The Rock was willing to show and being able to flex these games. But you can't flex it so much that it becomes a circus like you're showing off at the gym. You want to flex to show muscle growth, not to flex for the girl next to the mirror. Like you got to know why you're flexing. So this could work, but you better make sure you do it for the right purpose.
Yeah.
Gov, do you have the information on the suspension? If not, I can try to look it up. But I was at work. I was wondering if any of you had familiarity with it.
I've read like a few of the Twitter reports on it. Hold on, I have the last Twitter feed.
I haven't even done that. All I know is it affected multiple players, and they acted swiftly, and most of it was financial.
Yep. So, like specifically, Francis Bernard and Gabe Wright of the DC Defenders were both suspended 2 games for Bernard, 1 game for Wright. Giard Jones-Smith of the Battlehawks was suspended 2 games. On top of all of that, cornerback for the DC Defenders, cornerback Athula Kelly, linebacker Jamal Brooks, guard Rod Taylor, and coach Jeremy Watkins were fined And on the Battlehawks, DB Nate Meadors, linebacker Travis Feeney, running back Brian Hill, and coach Torrey Woodbury were also fined.
And this all stems from a altercation, right? A physical altercation.
Yes, there was an altercation between the teams at the end of the game of these two's last game.
Now, do you think that it's a good thing in transparency that we have referees and coaches mic'd up so that we can get to the bottom of it? Maybe even we don't see it as fans as like an entertainment source, but do you think like they're using these microphones to actually like parse out what was said, what led up to it, to try to find the instigators, to try to find everyone involved, to try to find really the source, so that way we don't just react sometimes like they do in the NBA, where they catch the rebound effect more than they do the instigator themselves. Like, do you think all that is actually beneficial and kind of a unique way that they weren't anticipating?
Kinda. Like, I'm still processing the situation because I didn't get to see this game specifically.
Right.
But I heard about what happened afterwards. I've seen videos of it on Twitter. I didn't think it was so bad, but I also didn't realize there were so many people involved. So there was clearly stuff going on in camera angles I didn't see. So I would like to hear the mic up of the refs to hear what was actually going on in the field.
See, I heard it was ugly just because it was a bad look, not that it was violent. That's
right.
That's kind of the takeaway I got. It wasn't like ill intent, but it wasn't a good look given, what they're trying to promote.
How many games are on tomorrow? Do we know?
Maybe that's the problem that I don't know right off the top of my head, and I've tried really hard to follow this league. I believe that there's 3 on tomorrow, 2 on Sunday.
Yeah, I won't be home tomorrow. That's why I was curious.
I know they're doing a very late game because in Seattle, and it starts at 10 o'clock.
Oh, there we go.
And I actually think that's a good thing because it's almost like college football where it's like you have an early game for the East Coasters, maybe it's a Big Ten game, and then you have the Pac-12 at night. And so I kind of like that barrage of like you have some games on in the morning, some games on at night, and there's always something on.
And I'd argue that it's better that way as well because, not many people will want to watch even the NFL for a whole day. So if you can get it in good time zones for everybody, in different parts of the country, at least you're going to get, a couple people who want to watch one football game a day and be able to throw that on.
Yeah. So let's do this really quickly. Let's do a quick breakdown on purpose. We'll do a quick breakdown, and then we can elaborate as we build a lineup for this week. If we want to go back and touch on some of these things to make our point for people that we want in the lineup this week. But this was our lineup. It did end up cashing. I had one that ended up cashing for a bit more than this, but all of our lineups cashed this week, not for big profit, but we did end up making small profits across the board with a lineup very similar to this. My lineup had Lattimore, and I think one other difference. I think I paid up for like Brian Hill and not Armstead, and those were the 2 pivots I had made. Oh no, it was Max Borgi and not Armstead, and then I didn't have Smith. That's what it was. But it doesn't really matter. This was our lineup though. Any takeaways from this lineup?
I mean, everything just kind of worked for us. It felt like.
Yeah, like we got ownership good because we had our cheap running back, and Hundley came in lower owned, and he smash played. We got his best receiver to go with him, so good stack. Pearson was a solid bring back. Could have tried to get in Josh Gordon, but he was also more expensive. Kirkland, great late game hammer.
Yeah. Well, I think Pearson was good because he was cheaper and he had been more consistent. And so your bring back was still consistent. I don't pay attention to ownership, especially in the XFL when it comes to quarterback. I just want the most talented one. I had said that forever long that I thought Brett Hundley, even given his age, was the most talented quarterback as soon as he was to take over. And so, like, I didn't care if he was 19%, 9%, or 90%. He was the only quarterback I was really going to play this week. And that helped too. Do you think we made any mistakes? And this, of course, hindsight, but I don't think so. I really don't.
I don't think we made any mistakes, but I also, when we look back on lineups, I don't really look at things like very often unless it's just a complete, like, this guy didn't even play. I don't really like to look at a lineup and say, oh, we made a mistake here, just because as long as we had a reason for it beforehand, I like it. You know?
Exactly. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
and I had no problem with the lineup we built here. I thought it was good, and it really wasn't bad.
well,
Like Pearson could have caught one of those could have got one of the Gordon's touchdowns and been a much better play. And then Smith also did not get a touchdown.
All right.
Yeah, but like let's look at Smith really quickly and just look at Smith and Armstead. I think Armstead actually had a better game, but the two fumbles are going to be negative points, and so his DraftKings score looks worse. But I actually think if you would have watched that game from a production standpoint, Armstead looked better. So like that would be my vacuum point to add. Go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, no, I just had a little bit of a challenge for us lineup wise.
Okay.
I want to see if we can try and get this lineup built within the next 15-ish minutes.
I think that's fair.
All right.
I think that's fair. And
I can start a timer and see what we got.
Yeah, give us that chest countdown. Give us that clock. We're gonna play a speed round here.
All right. I'll get 10 seconds and then we'll start the clock, okay?
Yep.
Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 15 minutes. Let's go.
The reason we don't play Brett Hundley is what?
Ownership.
That would be the only reason.
Yeah.
But I think it's either him or Danucci.
Yeah.
Like at this point,
I would throw Huntley in.
Yeah, I would just go Huntley. I think he's my favorite quarterback play. Him, McCarron, and Danucci are the guys getting points.
I would agree.
I'd be fine with any one of them. If you didn't play any of them, it would probably be Silvers. But I don't like the match. The games against Orlando have just not been good, high-scoring affairs, and so I wouldn't want to target those games.
I love Silvers. He played for the Saints too. I think he's talented. He was a practice squad guy for the Saints. It's just they like McDonald over there and the Houston, and they've been blowing people out. So like I want to stick with a guy that I know is going to get all the snaps. And I would agree with Huntley, but usually the last game of the night goes under-owned. So I do think it's going to bring his ownership down somewhat. Like, obviously, I think he'll still be one of the higher quarterbacks, but I do think being the last game, his ownership could be reflective.
So I kind of liked what we did last week with our running back, where we went cheaper, because I still don't think there's any running back that's going to come out here and just completely blow up the slate.
I think it's Warren Hill.
With him after getting fined, like, I think I'd have to look into it with news, but is the team doing anything to discipline him after this last week? Could he see less snaps because he was one of the people involved? Or did he just come out and play like a beast?
Yeah, the only reason he missed week 2 was because of injury. I mean, every other week he's gotten double-digit points, and we know he has an NFL pedigree.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I like the reasoning there. I don't.
The only other pick I would have would be to go with Armstead again as like a bring back to a Hundley in that DC game. I think either one of those two would be fine.
I'm gonna put Armstead in first and see if we got money for Hill because I like the reasoning.
I feel like wide receivers are the moneymaker. So
I want to save my money for that. Do we just lock in Josh Gordon?
I didn't see his game last week. What did he get?
105 yards and 2 touchdowns or something?
Yeah.
116 yards, 2 touchdowns?
But he's looked terrible the rest of the time.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks he didn't look great. He's actually gotten a decent amount of targets. Like, let me hold on, let me pull it up.
It's
So
win-win.
currently he has 13 targets on the year, but he's converted that to have like the most yards per reception above any other receiver.
He has 13 catches.
I-
So what's his targets?
Oh, 18 targets, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, and I would say that we are on a PPR website. We just mentioned how wide receivers are valuable. I just think we both name one receiver we like, and we play that guy. And we find a way to make it work. So you want to play Josh Gordon, Donnie? Is there a wide receiver that you feel like we got to play?
Well, I feel like we need a guy to pair with Hundley. I kind of want to bring in Bryant. He's right there. Martavis Bryant, yeah.
Martavis, right?
He hasn't had a big blow-up game yet,
Yeah.
but that's more reason why I think we should try and get on him before he does.
Well, we know he's played in the league, and we know he has the talent. This could be a Josh Gordon,
Right.
He because in week 2 he shouldn't have played, and that's the reason he got 0. He basically was a decoy. I guess he had like the flu. Not to be too graphic, but I guess he had some really bad stomach pains and was like trying to use the bathroom on the sidelines multiple times. Like it just wasn't good. So I'm okay with that. For myself, if there is a wide receiver I gotta play, I gotta go back to it until he fails me. I still think he's too cheap.
Lattimore, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I really like that, actually.
I played him every week, so if this is the week he's gonna fail me, so what, man? You made me money. So if this is the week that you're gonna make me eat some crow, I'll gladly grab the spoon and eat it if I got to. But we could be seeing a quarterback change with Paxton Lynch out there, which actually could lend itself to more targets for a lot of more, and just that passing game being more efficient in general, which might make the game more competitive. So that could just be. So let's get defense out of the way. I think we just take whatever defense is playing Orlando.
I'm perfectly fine with that too.
I'm good with that.
I was gonna. Well, okay. So my rules are defense playing Orlando or the Roughnecks defense,
and it's both. So.
And so like that's the double whammy this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even mind having Latimer on the other side. He's just consistent.
So here's the thing: do we go wide receiver because we like wide receivers and that's PPR website? Or do we just play Ryan Hill? Because we have an option here because Allison got hurt late in that game. The Dragons don't have very many running backs left. The only other guy would be the wide receiver hybrid that we played in week number 1. I believe his name was like Harmon or something. I'm going to have to look it up now. But Hammond. Yeah. We played TJ the first week, didn't do much. But he ended up playing, got some attempts because of the injury. If Knox is out, but if Knox is back, then who knows? So it makes me
ruled out for Saturday's matchup against the Vipers. Is that last week?
Yes,
that is last week. Yeah. So he was out last week, and then Ellison, who is more of their hammerback, got hurt late in that game.
Yep, he has been able to practice limited this week, so barring some setback in warmups, I think Ellison will still play. But does he get his full workload?
Yeah. See, for me, it's either Brian Hill or we get one of these wide receivers. So I was going to see what we had left at wide receiver here. I want to mention very quickly, though, Max Borgi is really talented and probably the most talented player maybe in this league outside of Josh Gordon. But this is the week to fade him, especially because last week was probably a good week and he went up $300 more. So I just want to mention that. If you are building a lineup, this is 100% the week I stay away from Max Borgi. Even if the injury concern is just a precaution, the fact he is this expensive with the injury tag is enough for me to cross him off my list.
I'm fine with going Hill, but I just want to look at a little bit more at the receivers. If you scroll down. So what's that P tab next to? Okay.
So I would say for me, it'd be Pharrell or it would be kid from Houston. I'm trying to think of his name.
Well, we have Houston's defense. We don't have a bring back to the Latimer.
Putnam would be the other guy that would have
Yeah.
my.
Well, what if we put him in? Could we afford Hill and get off Armstead?
I believe we could.
How do we feel about that, Gov?
I could work with that. I forgot about Putnam, to be honest.
Putnam has been
The only
pretty-
problem is, like, I don't, like, again, outside of the defense, I don't know how much I want from that Houston-Orlando game.
Yeah.
Now, Latimer is consistent, but do I think anyone really ceilings in that game? Not really.
It's true.
That would be my only thought on that.
While Putnam looked really good in week number 2, looked not so good in week number 1, looked okay in week number 3.
And we're getting the week number 1 matchup again. So,
yeah.
Now the question is, do they scout more for him and be more prepared, or do they come up with the same game plan?
I think Armstead's more talented, but he did fumble twice. So what do we think about Armstead? Like, because talent-wise, he played for Jacksonville, showed a lot of talent over there, got COVID, and just never got back in the league.
I mean, to fumble twice, I feel like there's a good chance that he comes back and has a good game. Depending on the type of person he is, I feel like, he'll have a confidence former NFL player to just come in and want to just show out and show that he belongs.
I mean, he was hurt for most of the beginning of the year. Obviously, it was a late ad. That's why he didn't play much in week number 1. So let's see how many carries he got this last week, if it will tell me. It doesn't look like it tells me how many carries. He did have 51 yards on his lost fumble attempts, though. Gov, I'll let you break the tie. You've been really quiet.
I remember from last week, he must have got about 11 or 12 carries.
So
just because last week he had a total of 21 and now he has 33. So I'm guessing he got 12 carries this week.
So do we go with him because he's going to get the touches over Putman?
I might do that too. Like, I don't mind having Hill and Armstead. Yeah.
And we just bet on NFL talent at that point.
Because we know if there's one team that's not throwing it and they're running the ball, it's DC. So, like,
DC.
any of their runners. Whether it's paying up for Smith, whether it's their quarterback Tamu or De'Ara King,
I mean,
whether it's Armstead.
This is the NFL talented lineup because we got Huntley played in the league, Hill played in the league, Josh Gordon played in the league, Bryant played in the league, Lattimore played in the league for Denver, and then Armstead, and then the defense. Like, we're playing the retreaded NFL lineup.
Which, I don't think it's bad to bet on the talent. We've kind of been doing that. We definitely did that all week 1.
We did.
Double J in the chat said that Ben will be the higher owned.
He might be right because Ben also looks the most sexy in terms of being able to run the ball. And just like, I think everyone wants to I mean, I'll be transparent. I bet on the Dragons to win whatever the equivalent of the Super Bowl would be. I got them at plus 900 to win it all. I thought all their games have been super competitive. I think they've been very unlucky when it comes to the win-loss record. And I actually think they're the second best team in the league. So where are we at time-wise, Gov? I think that's it for the lineup. Unless we want to
barely made it, I believe.
We're at 12 minutes and 30 seconds. We still have 2.5 minutes.
So basically a 2-minute warning. Is there any?
Yeah, we are at the 2-minute warning, basically.
Right.
And we're 20 seconds away from the 2-minute warning.
Anything we want to change? The only other thing would be maybe playing DC's defense because Greg Williams loves to blitz and sacks get you so many more DraftKings points. And like the DC Defenders team has been super aggressive. But
And Vegas is a high throwing team, so like you can get picks in that from them.
Right, and then we just do the Jameis Winston type thing where it's like, okay, we'll eat some sacks, but because we're going to keep Huntley in there, but we'll be so different because we'll want to do it. To me, that's being too cute, but it would be a strategy.
I would like the sneaky defense would be for the same reason I said with like DC versus Vegas would be to take the Brahmas against Seattle. Because we also know Seattle is a heavy pass offense.
They are.
So you could take a shot on them getting some sacks. And that's actually one of the cheaper defenses. Like if you wanted to take a shot on a cheap defense, the Brahmas is the one to do.
Yeah, and I want to say Ben DiNucci actually leads the league in fumbles of anyone in the entire league, including running backs. Like he's fumbled a lot. I don't know if it will tell me, but I want to say, yeah, he has.
He has 5 fumbles on the season.
Yeah.
I'm currently looking up.
Yeah. 5 fumbles on the season.
No.
No, 6. 6, they're saying.
It's either 5 or 6. So, yeah. I'm looking to see if there's a wide receiver that has anything like that.
I've been watching the games pretty closely. He's been coughing the ball up a lot. Now, he's obviously probably the most gifted in terms of, like he's almost looking like Aaron Rodgers out there, but he hasn't been taking care of the ball very well either. Go, what's your thoughts? We probably got about 30 seconds left. Would you get cute with defense to try to be different, or do you just attack Orlando because they're so bad?
Time's up.
There we go. We're going to keep it then.
Yep.
All right. And Jay, I would just say I agree. Like Hill seems like a very smart play this week, and we usually have only played one running back. We haven't found much value in the running back position, but
I do love Armstead though. He's gotten healthier and healthier every week. And I really think last week he would have blown up had he not had those fumbles. 58 yards might not seem like much, but in a league where we've seen a lot more passing than we anticipated coming into this league, I do think that's quite a bit for a team that maybe is not known for running the ball. And Armstead has shown the ability to catch the ball a little bit too, similar to what Kalen Ballage, who you didn't think necessarily had the receiving upside, has still shown some ability to do it. So I like the lineup. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
No, that's it for me.
Yeah, that seems good.
Yeah, we kept the show high and tight. I liked it.
I like our lineup too. Let's have a good one this week.
Please.
I really hate that John Rahm had to freaking withdraw from PGA.
That
hurts so many of that hurts my rainmakers. That hurts everything.
Can we talk about this for just a minute? Because I have a potential sweat going on now. Obviously, the golf got suspended, so we won't know how it ends. But I'm telling you guys, I love golf. I know Gus got into it more. I would love to do some cut sweat lives potentially, because I do think the cut line for golf is one of the more fun sweats you will have of all DFS sports. Do you agree with that, Gov, or not? Like, I just find Fridays to be so much fun to open your lineup and be like, okay, do I got 5 through? Do I got 6 through? And like, I don't know, I would just love to sweat maybe the last hour of some of these smaller tournaments that don't get as much coverage. I've been becoming a bigger and bigger fan of golf.
I'm usually not around during the cut times, but I've definitely been getting more into golf. I'm again, it helps me get into a game when I've played it multiple times, and I have probably 36 holes under my belt in my entire life of actual golf played.
Yeah, me too. See, God, it does piss me off.
Not just like putt, not just driving range. Just like I actually been on a course.
See, what pisses me off about golf is I was not a fan of golf at all. Like I'm like, yeah, this sport's boring. But then Donnie can attest to this. Like I told Donnie, every year I try a sport that I haven't tried in a while, right? So a couple of years ago I tried soccer or football again for the international people, and I couldn't get into it. And I think I'll try hockey during the playoffs again this year because it's been a few years since and like golf was one of them I went back to. And I'm like, you know what? I like this now. And then gambling became more popular. I'm a big fan of Pat Mayo and the PME. So I'm like, he talks about it all the time. And I just fell in love with it. But then it's like, damn it, I fell into the old man's trap, Gov, where it's like when you hit a certain age, you start following golf. And I'm like, you know what? After 30, I guess it might just be true. Maybe you become a fan of golf. So maybe Donnie's got about 20 more years. But Donnie, eventually you'll be watching golf with just as much excitement as me.
Yeah, I have not given golf a shot. I don't know.
I know you haven't. So this will be a fun topic to end the show on, Donnie. How many of these guys do you know in my lineup? How many do you even know? Like, have heard of?
Okay, yeah. Do you know any of the names? Let's start there. Yeah.
No.
None of them?
So I can't even
None
go
of
on.
them.
So I couldn't even go on to. Can you guess the first name of any of these people?
Okay, so Gov, you're kind of like probably the median level because I'm probably the biggest golf fan here in terms of I watch it on Thursdays because I work remotely, so I can watch it from home, and it's a great sport to watch without volume. So like that's another reason why it becomes such a.
Oh yeah, it's a great background sport. Like
Yeah.
I love having it on in the bar because I can just look up. Okay, that's the score.
Same.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah,
100% what I do.
they have a really good setup for that with the scores in the corner cycling through. Like they actually have a good setup to have it on TV at all times.
So Gov, I know you know almost every one of these names, right? Because but how many of my guys right here would you say are mainstay, like household names that Donnie doesn't know?
At least one, probably two, are guys that if you have any knowledge of golf,
Right.
you know them.
I would say 3, but I'm a huge golf fan.
I could go 4 for people who actually watch golf, maybe not people who play golf or stuff.
Right. Okay.
But then you definitely have 2 guys that most people do not know at all.
Okay, so Scotty Scheffler is like.
I was about to say, let's go through it real quick. You gave it away. So first guy's name is Scotty Scheffler.
Right.
Would you have gotten Scotty just looking
No.
at that name? No.
So give Donnie the NFL comparison in terms of popularity to Scheffler. Like who would you say he is?
Let's see. From what I'm seeing, Scotty Scheffler would be like I would say probably like Jalen Hurts.
I would say
Like he's definitely a quarterback, but he's not Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Yeah, I would say he's Aaron Rodgers. He's
he's that next tier down. And people know him, and he's pretty good, but he's not the top 2 or 3 guys.
But he never lives up to the expectation that you would expect. Like he's better than he should be probably, but just never lives up to.
Yeah, that's about right. That's the Scotty Scheffler.
Potential.
Okay,
right?
let's go through this now. Donnie, what do you think this next guy's name is? Last name is Morikawa. First name begins with a C. Just any guess. I don't care.
I'm gonna go Chris.
Wow, Chris Morikawa. It is Colin, but I would have Colin Morikawa. Now this is the other guy that I think most people would know, but this is more like that diva wide receiver that you know.
Yeah,
it's not a quarterback. It's not a mainstay person, but you know this. And it's not like the top one. It's not like a Justin Jefferson or
It's like an AJ Brown.
Yeah, or even like
if you're a golf fan, you respect this guy. But if you're not a golf fan, you probably know him, but you don't know how good he is. I would say he's Justin Herbert.
It's I would think more like I said, I think it's more of a wide receiver, but I would call it like a Mike Evans, maybe something like that. Like he's a good wide receiver, but if you're not a fan of Tampa, you don't really know. You're just like, okay, it's Mike Evans.
He's a difference maker, but if you don't know the sport, you wouldn't appreciate him.
Exactly. That's Morikawa. Okay, next one. What does the S with last name Eam? What do you got, Scott? What do you got, Donnie?
Shin.
Shin Im. Nope. It is Sungjae, right? Sungjae? Sungjae Im. This is a newer guy. Like, he's only been on the tour, what, 2 years now?
He's
3?
25, I believe. He's really young.
Right, yeah. I was about to say, he has not been golfing very long, but he has made himself actually a pretty damn good, like, mid-range priced guy golfer. So, like, this is the kind of guy, it's like, this is where I would put your good running back.
Yeah.
If I were comparing it to NFL.
That's good because, running backs get like a ton of touches. Like, he's your workhorse. This
is your Jamal Williams. This is your DeAndre Swift. This is that kind of guy. He's not like the Christian McCaffrey running back, but you want this guy on your team. He is good.
I would say he's Derrick Henry because not a lot of people know him because, again, you got to be a golf fan. This guy, Sungjae Im, plays every single weekend. There are a lot of golfers that take like the big majors or they'll only play the big majors, Donnie. This guy plays every tournament.
See, that's why I would have said more like I don't think he's like as big a name as like a Henry. So I would have said more of something like equate to like a Miles Sanders or something like that. That not quite household name running back, but like that guy's gonna play every week. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's a grinder.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually have to run. Like, things getting a little chaotic.
Oh, you're good.
I got you.
All right. We'll talk about the show another time. Yeah, we'll talk about the show another time.
Yeah, we can end, buddy. We can end. But
all right.
This is fun. I would like to do this again. That's the fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
But good show, guys. We're gonna have a good night, everyone.
Even the dog saying good night. That tells you we need to wrap up. Good night, guys. Have a good one.
Good night, everyone.
Peace out.